The name Jesus,
Yes.
only appears on our alphabet as of 500 years ago. So
And
the
he
quest
lived way before 500.
1,500 years prior to that.
And the lie detector test determined that this part is true. The letter J was invented in 1524 by Gian Giorgio Trissino, an Italian Renaissance grammarian who distinguished the letter J from the letter I. Now, buckle up, because that's about the only thing that's true in this video. Remember, you talk fast, but I listen slow. So let's listen.
The question is, if on the Hebrew charts and on hieroglyphics and on Italian writings and Greek writings, J is not there, what is the agenda of the Catholic system converting from Yeshua to Joshua?
And the lie detector test determined that this was a lie. First of all, the Catholic Church has absolutely nothing to do with this. The Roman Catholic Church didn't invent the alphabet, and it certainly didn't invent the letter J because of a secret agenda. To even suggest this is absurd and not grounded in any research. I've said it a million times. Whenever people like this make claims, examine them to see if they present any evidence. And as usual, he offers none. First of all, and most hilariously, Yeshua is not Hebrew, it's Aramaic. Jesus' name in Hebrew would have been Yehoshua, which in English is transliterated as Joshua. So let me pause real quick, because notice I said transliterated, not translated. To transliterate means to take the sounds of an original word and carry it forward using the letters of a new language. Translation, on the other hand, is where a new word in a new language expressing the meaning of the original word. So, no, this has nothing to do with a Roman Catholic agenda, and the mere suggestion of this is nonsensical.
And as if that is not enough, the first rule of academic excellence in terms of translations of scripture, you don't translate a name.
According to who? Only on Beyonce's internet do we hear some foolishness like this and accept it as fact without questioning its validity. And as we've already discussed, nobody translated these names, they transliterated them.
Mount Carmel remains Mount Carmel.
And the lie detector test determined that that was a lie. Mount Carmel in Hebrew would be spelled with a K, not with a C.
Hence, slavery was the biggest crime, to take away people's names.
I totally missed this the first time around because I was focused on the main speaker and not the interviewer. But did you catch what he just said? He stated that slavery's biggest crime was to take away the names of the people being enslaved. That is what you call a false equivalent. When people were enslaved, they didn't transliterate or translate their names. They completely changed their names. We all know this happened in the transatlantic slave trade, but it also happened in the Bible as well. When Daniel was taken to Babylon with the rest of the Israelites, they changed his name from Daniel to Belteshazzar. In Hebrew, Daniel means God is my judge. In the Chaldean language, Belteshazzar means Bel's prince, or he whom Bel has favored. Bel was the principal divinity worshipped at Babylon. So the same thing happened with Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, who we commonly call Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They completely gave them new names. Again, these names weren't translated or transliterated, they were completely changed. Another biblical example would be Paul. Many people have been taught and believe that Saul's name was changed to Paul after his conversion, but nothing could be further from the truth. Saul was a Jew by birth and went by that name among the Jews because it was a Jewish name, but he was also a citizen of Tarsus, a Roman city. So when he was around the Romans or Gentiles, he went by the name of Paul, which was a Roman name. His name wasn't changed, it was simply transliterated from one language to another. Discussing what happened with names during the transatlantic slave trade and the transliteration of names from one language to another is comparing apples and oranges. No person operating in intellectual honesty is going to make that comparison. This is why you and I have to be careful, because these men are either grossly misinformed, uninformed, or intentionally deceitful. I'll let you decide which one. But what we will not do is let them get away with trying to sneak in that shameful comparison. They do this hoping that appealing to the transatlantic slave trade will cause people to think emotionally rather than intellectually and logically. They are hoping that the very mention of slavery will cause us to turn off our critical thinking and blindly accept their egregious comparison. But we ain't falling for it. His name wasn't changed. Jesus' name was not changed. It was simply transliterated from one language to another.
People's name.
Moses remains Moses.
Right.
You don't translate a name.
Another lie. Moses does not remain Moses. Moses in English is transliterated from the Hebrew Moshe. Jacob in English is transliterated from Yaakov. A transliteration does not change the meaning of the word, only how you pronounce it. In Hebrew and English, Moses still means drawn out because he was drawn out of the water. Both Yaakov and Jacob still mean heel catcher or supplanter.
So if you teach me as an academician and say, this is the rule that you must follow,
Right.
then how come when I get on Yeshua, the name is translated to Jesus and it's non-consequential?
Once again, Jesus' name in Hebrew is Yehoshua. In Aramaic, it would be Yeshua. Aramaic was the everyday language used by the Jews during Jesus' lifetime, though Hebrew was still used in worship and daily prayers. So Yeshua would have been the name that Jesus was most commonly referred to. However, the Gentiles of the Roman Empire spoke Greek and Latin and simply could not pronounce Yeshua. This is expressly why, when the New Testament was written, it was written primarily in Greek, and Yeshua would have been transliterated into Jesus. Once again, Yehoshua, Joshua, Yeshua, Jesus, and Jesus all mean Yahweh saves. Transliterating the name does not change the meaning. So eventually Greek was replaced by Latin, which typically emphasizes the first syllable of a word, and so Jesus became Jesus. Now, finally, when the Anglo-Saxons invaded England, they converted the Latin I into the German J, and over time, Jesus evolved into our modern English Jesus. It is non-consequential because the meaning didn't change, only the pronunciation. If this gentleman had done the slightest bit of research into this, he would have known all of that.
Do you think there's an agenda to dilute the true scriptures of what the Bible's supposed to be? Was there an agenda to even minimize African significance in the Bible?
Yes, and for more information on this particular subject, please go and cop Pastor Jerome Gay's absolutely phenomenal book entitled The Whitewashing of Christianity.
If we can go back on the text itself, you would find that the European does not appear on the text. Let's agree on that as a start-off point.
Yeah, we can agree on that as a starting point.
The only time you see the European appearing on the text is on writings such as the Romans, which is a New Testament phenomenon.
That Paul.
Herod,
Okay.
when Yeshua was born, he was being taken to be counted. By who? By the Roman Empire. Then the Romans start appearing in the New Testament.
So the majority of the Roman Empire was on the continent of Europe. So only by that definition could one consider them Europeans. But the problem with that is that the concept of Europe as a unified identity didn't even exist in the first century like it does today. So ancient Romans considering themselves Europeans would be anachronistic or belonging to another period other than the one being portrayed. For instance, before what we now know as the continent of Africa existed, the northern coast of Africa was a Roman province. Africa as we know it didn't even exist until the 16th to 17th century.
In fact, they don't appear as much except as oppressors.
No issues there. The Jewish people were colonized by the Roman Empire during the first century when the New Testament was written. This is an empirical fact.
The crucifixion of Yeshua happens in the hands of the Romans, who are the Europeans.
The crucifixion was carried out by the Roman Empire at the behest of the Jews.
If you look just on the crucifixion weekend,
Yes.
as to who crucified him, who carried the cross, who buried him, you'll end up with two criminals and Yeshua dying between two thieves in the east and in the west. And Africa being at the center of the cross, we have thieves from the east, we have thieves from the west.
What? Now that was a lie. Jesus wasn't from Africa. He was born in Bethlehem and raised in Nazareth.